Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we had the pleasure of sitting down with Sarah Bellum. Well, I guess that's her IG handle, but Sarah Zink, also known as Sarah Bellum Fit on all socials. But yeah, so she's actually a WBFF pro bodybuilder, and we've never had a woman bodybuilder on the show. It was really cool. It was like honestly like a cool opportunity to even do.
Yeah, actually, I don't even think we've had a pro bodybuilder on the show.
True, just
right?
in general.
Yeah, I think she's like the first pro bodybuilder we've ever had on the show ever.
Yeah, really cool. Honestly, we should definitely do it again. We talked about a whole bunch of things from
really
how she got into lifting at all. Not a typical story for, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's not like the typical like turn your life around, like whatever story, but it's more relatable, I think, honestly. And,
Yeah,
like,
it is.
More,
it's more
realistic.
Real.
Yeah. And so we talked about a whole bunch of things from misconceptions people have about lifting weights and what things you see in the gym that are annoying. We even briefly talked about. We talked about gear, like going on cycle, that type of thing, like kind of adverse effects, things people think about and don't. We talked about diets, which a lot of the time, and issues that she sees personally with her clientele and like what's more difficult with both men and women with the diet.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of flew through it, dude.
Yeah.
You feeling okay?
No, dude, I'm a little crazy right now. Sorry, I'm all over the place today. I drank way too much coffee.
Yeah, I can tell. Well, here's the thing. You know what? See, because I've been personally what I tend to do, my problem is I'll get to the middle of the day, 1, 2 o'clock, reach for another coffee, right?
Yeah, I probably had 3 cups today. Kind of starting to crash a bit now.
And did you have a pre-workout this morning too?
Yeah. So it's you know what I mean?
It gets to you. And so lately,
one of those days.
Dude, lately what I've been doing is instead of reaching for that coffee midday, I've been having this drink called Magic Mind. And so
you just had this in the fridge?
Yeah, I did.
Tell me about
I
it?
did. Well, it's just, they're little bottles. They probably snuck in there.
The hell, man.
Don't worry. I'll let you have some. I'll let you have some.
Well, yeah.
But so pretty much, so Magic Mind, it's like a little drink. It's got matcha, it's got cordyceps, rhodiola, lion's mane. There's a whole slew of adaptogens in there. So it's not
nice.
Yeah, so it's how I like to think about it is either an enhancement to your coffee that you're already taking, but it sounds like you don't really need that. But sort of
reduce the amount of coffee I have to consume here. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's kind of where I think it can come in is okay, instead of reaching for another coffee that's just as we know, coffee doesn't give you more energy. It just suppresses the things that make you tired.
Yeah.
Right. Magic Mind will actually help you adapt to stress, which is why it's called an adaptogen. And so, yeah. And so
it sounds like there was some adaptogens in there. You listed some mushrooms, which I've taken separately, but it's on their own. They can be expensive and whatnot and whatever.
Yeah.
Fall off, and now it's just I'm just drinking coffee. But I mean, lion's mane was super helpful for me personally when I.
Yes, lion's mane in particular for me was great too. Which and ashwagandha I forgot is also in here too. So it's a nice, it's a lovely little drink. The taste is pretty good. It's a little. I think it's a 2-ounce shot. Might be 3 ounce.
Okay. I thought it was like a drink, but it's like a shot.
No, yeah, it's a little shot. So it kind of feels like or tastes like how do you describe it? It's almost like citrusy, like greens and citrusy. Because it doesn't taste just like a green juice that can kind of be like that. It's kind of got a little pep in the step to how it tastes. So I've actually been enjoying it. Those of you who may be interested as well, get this, but we got yourselves a little discount code.
Discount code and everything, huh? Really holding out. You know what? I'm going to try some tomorrow. We have some in the fridge?
Yeah, we do. We do, of course, man.
Okay.
So you actually can get up to 56% off your first subscription in the next 10 days of this episode airing and 20% off a one-time purchase with our code APPLE20. That's APPLE20. If you go to www.magicmind.com/apple, use that code. You can get, one more time, 56% off. Let me see, 56% off. Geez, I'm totally screwing this up. 56% off your first subscription of 20% or 20% off your first one-time purchase. Does that make sense? Is what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So if you subscribe, you get a bigger discount.
Correct.
Then if you do a one-time purchase, you get 20%. That's honestly pretty good.
Yeah, it's actually like very, very good. It brings it down. Like if you go to the website and you're like, that's a little pricey. And then you got to think, where did I hear about this from? No, you might have heard it on Joe Rogan. Okay, you heard it on Joe Rogan. Who cares? You heard it about here at Bone Apple Tea. And that's why you're going to actually go to www.magicmind.com/Apple and use our code Apple20.
Yeah,
instead.
Definitely don't use Joe Rogan's code.
He's
That's
getting plenty. He's
hell.
getting plenty of sponsorships. You know what I'm saying?
He's got money. He's got money.
Yeah, he's got money.
He doesn't need any more attention.
But yeah, so that's my little 2 cents. Definitely try Magic Mind. The discount that we have for our listeners is fantastic. Go check it out. Also, definitely listen to this episode. It's awesome. You're going to learn about health. You're going to learn about wellness. You're going to learn about training. You're going to learn about feeling good and being better from a very experienced and knowledgeable person.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Might even have her on again sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Well, it's great to actually meet you outside of the gym.
Yeah.
I've always sort of kind of seen each other and we had a few exchanges and stuff, but I always know you're really dedicated and serious, so I'm never trying to linger.
Yeah.
So it's good to get you outside of
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I think one of the things is it's always okay if you want to talk to people. It's just keep it short and sweet.
Right.
And
make sure it's in between sets.
Yeah.
When you're on your 8th rep,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do people jump in and have people done that? I feel like that's so annoying. You think that's
I hate to be the negative Nelly, but yeah, gym etiquette, a lot of people don't understand it, and try not to be judgy, but at the same time, if you're in a gym, you should know the rules.
That one seems so obvious.
You
know what I mean?
Wipe the equipment down. It's pretty simple,
Yeah.
But they will jump in.
Yeah, I mean, there's always regulars. You come early enough, there's I don't know any of these people, but there's always one guy who just hops around and leaves weights on every single bar and then just goes home.
Yeah, there's a ghost person who goes to our gym in particular that I know they've been there because there's weight on the squat rack and then there's weight on a barbell over there and there's weight
Leg
everywhere.
press.
There's just weight everywhere. And I'm like, why aren't you putting it away?
Yeah.
It's I'm done with this. Okay.
But for the most part, everyone there is awesome.
Yes,
it's true.
Oh,
it's
one of my favorites. I've talked about him a few times on the podcast. Bill, the one of the eldest, super in shape guys still. He's always joking around, talking about getting his abs and stuff. And
Bill. Bill is the eldest.
Yes.
Gotcha.
He's he does that ab wheel.
He does that ab wheel, dude.
Which I know people that are
I don't think I
teenagers
could
that can't do that.
Yeah, he's in his 80s.
He's 81. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's insane. And I always really love that because I love seeing, I tell him all the time, I want to be you when I'm older.
Right.
Have all this capability and he rides his bike and he's strong.
Yeah.
Especially for his age and his mental capability is really there still.
Oh yeah, he competed in Olympic weightlifting, and I'm not really super sure, what that is because that's not my bag. But when he was back in the day, that's what he did, so he's been in a gym probably over 60 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of knowledge and a lot of time spent just honing your craft. So yeah.
Now I remember you had said, kind of speaking to that, is you said you had started not super early on, that you found the gym later.
Yep.
So when did you start going, and what was the motivation? And
so my fitness journey started. I was in my early 30s. I'll be 42 in October. So it was a little over 8 years ago, maybe. Oh. And that was after the birth of my third child, which I'm sure pregnancy, it's hard to bounce back from, especially 3 of them.
I don't know personally.
Definitely.
But I've heard. I've heard.
So I had gained a lot of weight. And at the time, I wasn't even interested in lifting weights or anything along those lines. It was just I wanted to get skinny. And so I jumped on a bunch of fad diets. I did cardio. I, probably starved myself, drank a lot of Diet Coke, and I'd lost 62 pounds after.
Wow. My God.
Yeah, my third baby. But I didn't do it in a way that was healthy or sustainable or anything like that. So I'm trying not to take too much credit for that. But once I lost the weight, I was kind of at the gym watching another woman lift, and I was like, I could do that. So I went over and tried a few machines, and then eventually kind of progressed to the free weights and just fell in love with it. And so the focus kind of shifted from being skinny to being strong. And that's when my life kind of changed. So I got really into bodybuilding, decided to compete. So did that. I went pro in 2 shows.
That's crazy. So I feel like we can't skate by that like that quickly. So you went pro in 2 shows. That means you competed twice and you went boom pro.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So it's an accomplishment for sure. I have a pro card with the WBFF. I also do compete, or I have competed with the NPC in the wellness division. This year I'm going back to the WBFF. So it's been 5 years, so it'll be interesting to see how it's changed. What's
like the biggest difference there between like a WBFF and a wellness? Is it like lean?
There are different federations. So there are different federations of bodybuilding. And when you compete within usually one federation. I do too. But so the WBFF is just a federation, and then the NPC is a federation. And so, and then wellness is a category within the federation. So, but they differ by the league. So it's just the biggest difference between the 2 federations is in the posing and in just the overall attire. So like the WBFF, I don't know if you've ever seen the girls with the wings and the yeah. So it's costume, kind of costumey. It's very the bikini girls wear gowns. It's kind of almost a little pageanty.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's like a fitness beauty pageant, I guess you could call it. And then the NPC is strictly physique driven, and that's just what your physique looks like. So both of them are super fun.
Do you have a preference?
I place better with the WBFF. So we'll see. We'll see what happens this year, and then I'll make a judgment. But it's like apples and oranges. It's 2 totally different.
Right.
They're looking for different things. It's like night and day, the 2 different federations. So it's kind of hard to compare them.
Right. I'm doing the math on that. It sounds like you started lifting, and within 3-4 years, you got your pro card?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I had help. I hired a coach, and I, several coaches, and
hey, a lot of people hire a coach.
Oh
though,
yeah,
that's
for posing too, or
yeah. I'm not a good poser. So
posing's so hard.
It's harder than the workouts.
And if you don't have somebody that like is right there immediately correcting your form, it's like you got to do that. I feel like for years in the mirror,
Yeah, and then you have to learn how to do it without the mirror, which is even harder than doing it in the mirror.
And then not make like a really dumb face when you do your posing.
And by the way, you're in 4-inch heels in a bikini, so there's that.
You're like walking on stage, like, all right, and lat spread,
and there's lights, and so
an audience,
Yeah.
But posing is hard. It's more about, it's physically difficult because, you're basically just doing isometric holds.
Yeah. And like, I'm sure you already have a pump as well, just because you got to, that to me is always crazy because like, even after lifting sometimes, you go pose and just like, and it feels good because you can kind of like really feel like all the right muscles, etc. But it's like, I can imagine having like a crazy pump and then having to pose and then hold it, but then act like you're like not,
and you have to pretend like it's
you don't want to die.
Also, by the way, you're probably the most depleted you've been,
right?
And then like
exhausted,
don't breathe too much because you don't want your stomach to come out.
Yeah.
So it sounds like crazy. Like I feel like people don't really like understand. Like,
it's an art form.
What you probably feel like while it's happening too. So
there's definitely a disconnect. I've seen people these days like, why do we even care about bodybuilders? Like, what's so special about what they did? I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It's a little harder than it looks. I don't know how to say it.
It's not easy to look strong. You don't have to be strong. You just have to look strong, and just the specific proportions. It's like sculpture, but with the human body, and it's kind of where science and art meet, is what I usually say.
Oh, that's cool.
Pretty cool.
I like that. Where science and art meet. Very cool.
So like you said, the strength aspect is kind of what drew you in at first. I'm always curious, like, at least it feels like the healthier side of it is like, especially with women, like we're like, hey, check it out. Like you lift weights, like You keep doing it, you get stronger. And I don't know, it's like kind of an empowering thing, but I'm always curious, like what the motivation was. I feel like a lot of guys are like, oh, I just want to look jacked. You know what I mean?
Well, women want to look jacked too. So, I if you were to poll a bunch of women, I would say 80% of them started lifting weights because of a breakup or some guy that did them wrong. And so that's the initial motivation. Then you get in there, you start noticing that you're getting stronger, and then you start seeing physical progress. And that's when it gets addicting, is when you're like, I did that. My glutes are bigger because of this exercise, or, whatever it may be. But that's when it becomes addicting. It's almost like you have a sense of control, in a situation where you don't really have control, in a breakup. So it's kind of, it is an empowering thing. It really is. But it's more so just about being proud of how far you can challenge yourself and make it work. I don't know. Something like that. At least that's what it is for me.
So I feel like a lot of people kind of like underestimate what they're capable of doing. Unless they have somebody to push them, or like in this scenario too. I mean, it is like a little science experiment, right? Yeah. Like you have controlled input and you're like seeing what happens at the end of it. It's like, oh, well, maybe I changed this time and look at this happened.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I like, cause I know a lot of people that'll go and lift weights, but then they won't like, I should say, not that the weight matters, but like go to failure. And I'm like, you kind of need to push yourself and don't realize like, hey, you had like 6 reps more.
Right. Yeah. There has to be a rhyme to the reason, there has to be a reason that you're lifting, not only doing that exercise, but using whatever technique you may be using, or your rep counts, or, but anybody can get in the gym and do exercises, but the point is to do it with purpose.
Yeah.
So that it creates whatever you're trying to do, whether it's an aesthetic shape, whether it's strength gains,
What do you think? Because like, you said you kind of started with the more like unhealthy practices. You saw someone as sort of an inspiration of like, ooh, maybe I could do that.
Yep.
As you started moving more towards this sort of strength and bodybuilding, where along the line did you kind of realize like, oh, what I was doing before was not good for me?
Yeah. So that's really when I made the decision to compete. And that's where the bulk of my nutritional background kind of comes from, because when you compete, your nutrition has to be extremely precise. And it's not just in the amount of food that you're eating, it's in your food choices. And the goal when I decided to compete, I had to put muscle on because I was teeny tiny from having lost a bunch of weight, and hired a coach and was told that you can't do that without eating.
So like, what?
I know. I'm like, well,
I have to eat, but if I eat, I'm going to get fat.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It seems counterproductive, but that's how it works. You need to eat to grow. And so they gave me a diet and I followed it and it worked. And, now I'm at the point where in the off season, I'm like, woohoo, 2,600 calories. But, it wasn't always like that. And that's a little bit of a mental, it's harder to get over the fear of food and gaining weight than it is to actually follow the diet and lose it. It's like a mental thing. And, that's true with any kind of competition, I think. But yeah, so I was told I needed to eat, so I did that, and now I do a lot of it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, what do you think was like because I know there's a lot of women out there that in particular struggle with this idea of like, oh no, if I eat, then I'm so what was it with you, do you think, where you had that mental shift of, or maybe what helped you shift into this is okay?
I'm a super competitive person. And one of the reasons I decided to compete was because I mentioned that breakups are usually what spur the transformation. So I was seeing somebody who cheated on me with a WBFF pro, which ironically is what I am now.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, I can do that. So
wow,
so there was nothing that was going to get in between me and that stage. And if they told me I had to eat 3,000 calories a day, I would have done it.
Oh, wow.
So it's just the competitive drive, and that kind of wanting to win, I guess, is what did it for me. I wish it were a better story. Like, I just,
something else happened,
follow this holistic, journey of truth. No, I wanted to beat somebody at something. So that's why.
But I mean, it sounds like it resulted in like a positive outcome for you overall, right? Like you kind of took it and used it to, it's one of those things like, I don't know, like whatever your motivation or fuel is, like if you're using it for something that's like, you use what you got, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if that's what you kind of needed to get there, it's like, who cares? Now you're here and it's, a lot better place than you were at.
Yep. If you can take chaos or trouble and turn it into self-improvement, that's the key. That's the key to everything. When life dishes you a bunch of shit, take it and improve yourself with it somehow.
Yeah.
And then you win regardless. So it's kind of my philosophy on life.
Well, it definitely seems like you would win regardless because it seems like you have a targeted execution of those of those things. Because some people, I think, struggle in just executing. They get hit with that sort of self-doubt or something, and then they sort of use that as a means to not take action.
Yeah.
And so it's cool. I think like your story, while you say you wish it was better, I think is a good one because I think it's probably something a lot of people can relate to of like being left or cheated on or something. And then like, what do I do with all of this? And you kind of took it and you said, you know what, I'm going to fucking move this goddamn weight.
It's like a positive outlet. There's like a million ways to skin a cat. I feel like it's like, there doesn't need to be it's not always like some polished, like, I had a come to Jesus moment and was like, but also like, I feel like this is why like working with a coach is so helpful because
that's the other thing you did really smart too, is you sought someone else who had more knowledge than you. You know?
Well, that's how you learn. That's how I've learned everything I know. I've learned either from training with other people or being coached by other people or, the personal trainer's exam doesn't really teach you a whole lot, So you got to kind of go out there and just dig into it on your own. And the best way to do that is to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. So
it's very true.
Yeah.
Like even with like, like having to eat more, especially with like anybody who's nervous about gaining weight too. I feel like as long as there's somebody there that's giving you reassurance, like, here's the plan. We just need to do exactly this.
Yep.
And in this amount of time, like, doesn't matter. We're going to be where we need to be. And somebody, because like, it's very easy for you to think that you're hitting your calories or that you're, eating less than you are. But like having somebody that's like on your ass about it and like can show you like, hey, by the way, you're eating way more than you think you are.
And food tracking is also extreme. Yeah.
And on like a, and then you have a set time frame. It's like it's like a trust the process, but you have somebody there reminding you,
Accountability. And, for sure. Yeah.
I think like to that point, just about like food and like having someone and like the importance of tracking. I know it's really popular right now in the like sort of fitness influencer space to say like, oh, I just like intuitively eat. And I'm glad you had that reaction because like intuition comes from, you earn intuition. You don't just start with intuition.
Right.
So like you can't be a person that has zero experience with zero knowledge, all of a sudden just know how to intuitively eat.
Right.
You have to gain that intuition. So your favorite famous fitness influencer knows how to intuitively eat for themselves and they don't have to track anymore because they already did it for 10 years.
And they know how many grams of protein are in every single food that they've ever eaten before. They've got it memorized.
Yeah. They know how much 6 ounces of chicken looks like.
Right, exactly. And even that, like I still weigh my chicken and I've been weighing chicken for 8-9 years now.
Yeah.
You can't trust your eye, but as far as tracking food goes, even when I'm eating quote unquote intuitively, I'm still tracking macros in my head. Yeah. It's not like I'm just like, oh, my body feels like it needs fats today, and that's what people think it is.
Yeah,
I'm craving carbs. I think I'm going to have some carbs.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works.
Oh, you're craving carbs?
Right.
Oh, shocker.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
my body said it wants some French fries.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm going to.
Intuitively, I think I need a burger.
Yeah.
So, so there's the disconnect there. But, so it's always, the name of the game is macros. It's just, if you're going to if you're going to enter into the gym with the hope of changing your body, then you need to have a macros-based diet in addition to your training program. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
So do you have any like misconceptions you see that are pretty common about like lifting weights for women specifically? Like the first one for me, at least, that comes to mind is like every woman that I've spoken to is like, oh, well, I don't want to get huge. And I'm kind of just like, well, I've been trying for like 10 years and it doesn't just
happen. It's not that easy.
I have 10 times the testosterone in you. And I've tried for a decade to get huge. And I can put on a large long sleeve and people will be like, oh, do you even work out?
Yeah, exactly. All it takes is a shirt and you just look like a normal guy.
Shirt that's a little longer in the sleeves and it's like, fuck it.
So I've done consultations with people who have literally said to me, I don't want to look like you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. You never will.
I don't think you can. Don't worry about it.
Million years. So what I usually tell people who are afraid of women who are afraid of getting like quote unquote bulky is that you need to eat for that to happen. You know, you're not going to grow unless you eat a shit ton of food or you're taking drugs. Those are the two circumstances in which
which I will want to touch on later on too, the sort of drug use.
Right. So that's usually my reassurance is that you won't grow unless you eat. And if you are in a deficit trying to lose body fat, then you probably will not put on muscle unless, there are a few exceptions to that rule. But
like the super newbie who can lose a little bit and gain a little bit because they've never touched a weight ever.
Right, exactly.
So their body's ready to do it. But
I think that misconception is fading fast. I think that with all these young girls I see in the gym training now that are learning and that are, in there and doing the work and, actually doing it with good form, I mean, you have your outliers on Instagram where I'm like, oh God, what is she doing? But for the most part, in our gym, at least what I see are these young girls are in there and they want to lift weights well.
Yeah. And I actually do see that a lot.
It's definitely
it's trendy now.
Common.
Yeah.
So, which is awesome.
It's a good trend. Finally, a trend that's actually good.
It is crazy to think about even like
pods.
When we were in like
that's a good one.
When we were in like high school, like it was like me and like a couple of my friends that would work out and then maybe the kids on the football team, but like they didn't actually know how to work out. They were just doing whatever the coach said. And like now it's like everybody goes to the gym or like wants to exercise and lift weights. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of like, where the fuck were you guys 10 years ago? But but also it's like
but also welcome.
No, it's awesome. Yeah. Like I'm like, well, this is great. And then especially like you said, like for women, like they're kind of understanding that you got to lift weights and because I just feel like I used to hear a lot of the times like, oh, like I'm going to do yoga and Pilates or something because I want to look like long and skinny. I'm like, that's like you need like your whole shape is your muscles. Yeah, it's
you're
like
still building muscle. It's just
like I don't want to be
body weight
muscular. It's like, well, like that's like the shape of your body. Like if you want to, slim down, okay, but at the end of the day, like you need muscles. Like your ass is like a muscle. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's it's like thank God, right? Like you can change that if you want to. So, but it's just funny because like for whatever reason that was like such a disconnect for so long. But you're right. There's like way more popular now, and it's really like nice to see people coming in.
Yeah, it's cool.
Actually giving a shit.
I have a lot of younger clients right now. I had a couple of 18-year-old competitors this year. I've got a 21-year-old in figure right now.
18. Wow, that's
two
crazy.
18-year-old girls. One of them did it. They were friends, and then the other one decided she wanted to do it. So I coached them both, and they both placed in top 5. I think one was third and one was fourth. I think.
Okay.
So they did
that's
really
awesome.
well.
Yeah.
But and it's a little bit different working with a teenage competitor because I'm not going to diet them as hard as I would an adult. But still, their bodies are like perfect. So you don't really have to.
Yeah. Well, it's at the height of all of our, like we have the best growth hormone, the best Tesla.
Yeah.
Like it's all like the height of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard like for younger, because like, I don't know, sometimes there's even like, I see people like whatever online, there's always one person who's like 15 who's like trying to cut down to like below 10% body fat. I'm like, you're still going through puberty. I feel like that's not the best idea.
For a guy, it's not as bad as it is for a girl because with,
yeah, that's true.
With the female organs and whatnot, they need that that body fat to do what they're supposed to do. Actually, when you compete, typically when you're a woman, you stop getting your period because you
how low a body fat does that take before you think that happens?
It varies per person, but anywhere below like 11-10%, you'll probably
I feel like if I even see a woman who's at 15%, I feel like you notice that.
Oh yeah,
like 15% on a woman is like, whoa.
Yeah. I'm at 18 right now, and I've got vascularity. So that's 15.
Must just be the lighting at the gym. Sometimes I'm like, she's looking like how many months out are you right now?
Yeah, 3.
3. Okay,
I've got some work to do. But, so 12 weeks. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
What do you usually shoot for stage weight? Like
usually I do a 16-week prep. Okay. But this time I had a vacation planned and it was summer, so I didn't want to. Yeah. So I started yesterday actually for a show at November 30th, the weekend of November 30th.
Okay. Yeah, keep in mind you didn't just start yesterday.
This is true. This is true. I prepped for my prep.
So.
Okay. Thanks for throwing me under the bus. Randy.
She's like, I thought about lifting. I was like,
it's kind of how it happened though. Yeah. 3 years, it might as well be yesterday.
Yeah. I did a mini cut for the summer. So I guess that technically counts.
Yeah. No, but I know the difference between show prep and summer prep is very, very different.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll see. 12 weeks. I'll be on stage.
But I mean, it looks like you stay relatively lean year round for the most part. No,
but do you think that's a little bit of our own self body dysmorphia kicking in a little bit?
So right now I weigh 123 pounds. In the off season, I've gotten as high as 162, and I'm 5 feet tall.
Really?
So I not this year. I didn't do it this year. So
you haven't seen me like that. Yeah, I haven't seen you at 160.
But I when I'm in a bulk, I'll eat, and that's you do put on body fat, and that's fine. I'll cut it off later, and I'll have all this muscle underneath. So who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
especially if you have the wherewithal to to actually go into a deeper cut when you're in the on season, not off season. I don't know how to say it. When you're on season, in season. There you go. It's wabbit season. Anyway, but because I've heard the term thrown around, main gaining. Have you ever heard that? I think Greg Doucette made it popular. It's the idea of maintaining sort of a relatively for men somewhere in the 12 to 18% range of body fat.
Yeah.
And not trying to go above a certain range because then it becomes more work on the latter end to cut down.
Yeah, so a lean bulk. Just
yeah. How do you feel about that? Do you think that that's something that most people should aim for?
So it depends on the client. I have a 57-year-old woman right now who we are lean bulking. I did put her through a bulk last year, and it was a lot on her body. And she did it, and she did amazing, but I wouldn't do it to her again. So somebody like that, that's ideal. And then you've got your bikini competitors who mentally can't handle getting fluffy in the off season. Sometimes you have no other choice but to lean bulk them.
Oh, interesting.
Or if you are in between shows, let's say you're doing 2 shows in a year and you want to put on some size in between, you wouldn't want to put on a ton of weight in between.
Oh,
6 months between shows and then cut back down. Right.
Yeah, it's going to be just too tough.
So that could be a circumstance where you would do it. It's possible. It just happens more slowly than, if you eat in a surplus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far in a surplus do you think you have to be for optimal, in your opinion, for optimal muscle issues?
So it depends. You can put on muscle at maintenance. It can be done. I would say maybe 500 calories is where I try to be, in the off season in a surplus.
Yeah.
That's a good place for me where I'm not gaining too much, but I'm still growing.
And you feel strong and ready to feel like you actually have some strength.
Yep. And similarly in a deficit, I would say for a contest prep situation, a 500 calorie deficit would be about where I'd be, in my cut at least to start and then go from there.
And do you feel like you notice, because you train both men and women, are there patterns that you recognize in either group that are commonalities of okay, I have to address this. Like something that comes to mind for me is like men tend to overestimate how much they can lift, which yields more injury and potential, coming off and having to dial things back.
I don't find that.
And then like I find okay. And then sometimes with women, I feel like it's like, oh, I don't want to push too hard. So those are things that like, just generality speaking. But in your experience, like, is there something that you're seeing with your clients?
So I wouldn't say in terms of like of load or how heavy they're lifting, but when they're coming into the program, one of the things that I find is that men have a tendency to undereat just in general. You guys don't eat enough.
Interesting.
And every single male client I've had in like the last 6 months, when they come in, I'll say, get a breakdown of daily, average daily diet and to get an idea of where their metabolism is at before I start to feed them. And then 9 times out of 10, and I'm talking like drastically under eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that though.
Yeah.
Because it's like
if you don't eat breakfast, like, which I know a lot of people, like even just thinking
I
about
don't
my
eat
dad.
breakfast.
But like he drinks coffee and then like doesn't eat until like way later. Maybe he'll have like a banana or something. Then has like one meal a day basically.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, like,
it just depends. I mean, is he getting all of his nutrient in that one meal?
No.
No. So then no.
No.
I mean, the point being is that like it's like you can see why it's common
like
that
I can
guys
see why.
undereat.
Yeah, and like I don't know, like I'm just thinking personally, like you get caught up at work and like you're just thinking about work, you're not thinking about food, and like I'll have to stop myself to go eat, but like I'm aware of that, whereas I know a lot of people who don't. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And your requirements are just higher. They're higher. You've got more muscle mass, you've got more mass in general, so you have to eat more. And I think a lot of men underestimate how much they need to actually eat to put on muscle. Whereas women, no, I don't, the ones that undereat, it's more of a, like a mental struggle thing, like a psychological thing than it is just not knowing any better. With the guys, they're just clueless.
Yeah. Oh?
Yeah. So that's one of the big differences I find in training men and women. But men, I love working with men because they just don't complain as much. They'll eat the same thing day in and day out. They do their workouts. They just don't complain about anything.
It's like, what do I do next, coach?
I know. It's wonderful. And, I don't want to say that the women complain, but women are a lot more verbal. And so, it takes some negotiation to get the job done. Okay. But, yeah. Nice. I mean, primarily my business is women. Okay. Like 95%.
Well, it makes sense. Like if you are a woman yourself, so it kind of makes sense that like a women audience would be attracted to how the fuck did she do that?
That is a good point though about like getting enough calories in, because like I feel like a lot of people don't, at least like unless you're eating McDonald's every day, it's like it is kind of work to eat that much food.
And it's
like
expensive.
It is not comfortable. And like I just remember the first time I went on an actual bulk and counted it out. And like
so much rice.
Wasn't eating garbage, was eating just like regular food, like whole natural foods, that type of thing. And I was like, I can't eat this much food. Right. I was like about to be the whole time. I was like, this is forcing myself to eat this.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable for like probably the first like 2-ish weeks.
Yeah, before your stomach kind of gets
2 to 3 weeks, and then your body will adjust.
And like me, even like I am never hungry right when I wake up in the morning. And like part of it was like, I need to start eating earlier. Otherwise there's no way I'm going to. So like I started eating breakfast in the morning. And I would go to the gym kind of like feeling sick. But like, a week or two into it, I would wake up and I'm like starving. You know what I mean? So it's actually crazy how quickly it changes. But it's funny that you mentioned that. It's just like, I don't think people realize how much work it is to actually get enough calories in if you're trying to bulk like that.
If you're doing it from whole natural food.
Sure.
It's easy
but again,
to
if you're
walk
just eating
like,
McDonald's, if you're eating McDonald's every day, you
have a shake. Like if you drink your calories, and get it from like ultra processed foods, like 3,000 calories can go down without you realizing it. But if you're actually being active about like, oh, these are the veggies, this is the meat, you start to realize like 500, 600, 700 calories is actually a pretty decent sized meal of just like actual food.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's true though. I didn't even think about like soda and everything. I feel like I only just drink water and I don't.
And there's a lot of people where they drink like soda or they go to Starbucks and they get the Trenta, like, cream
450
shake
calories.
Frappe type thing. Yeah. Now, I do want to kind of like shift gears a little bit, pun intended. But so when it comes to, because like for me, what I think I've been noticing is there's been a lot more sort of just like everyone's on gear. Like just like it is just very common.
Like SARMs or something.
Yeah, SARMs, like something. Like we saw that kid at our
SARMs
gym.
aren't considered gear. SARMs are non-anabolics.
Yeah,
So,
but the thing I don't like about SARMs is people will be like, "Oh, it's steroids without any issues." I'm like,
no, it still goes
No.
through the liver.
Yeah.
So
still going to
of
give you the
course
same
not.
testosterone
Yeah.
suppressing effects after you're done using it.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about using RAD 140, and I'm like, the dosages you're looking at from that study were on cancer patients at 1/100th the dose that you're using it as. So you can't just pick it up and be like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. In terms of PEDs, though, it's quote unquote safer than something like, Tren. So on the scale,
Sure.
we're working on a sliding scale here. It's on the lower end, but still, there's risks with everything, no matter what.
Tren is like, that's another one. It's kind of like popular for whatever reason as like a meme, but people are actually just doing it. I'm like,
they just buy it and inject it.
They're just like, oh, because it's funny. It's in a meme. It's like, bro, that's fucking jet fuel. That's like, okay, like get on a bicycle first, you know?
Like, at least with like tests, like we have tons of studies with it because people use it in other things and blah, blah, blah. So like we kind of have more information on tests than like, SARMs or like Tren is just crazy. Unless you're competing in Mystery Olympia and you're like second place and you want to be first, like don't just randomly take Tren.
Yeah.
So TRT therapy is definitely I'm going to use the word healthy, even though it doesn't really work, but it's the healthier of the PEDs. The downside with TRT therapy is that it suppresses your natural testosterone production. Right. And or at least for a man, when you come off of it, it doesn't always go back. And so it can be a lifelong commitment to take that. Now for women, when they take an anabolic steroid, something like Anavara Winstrol, it suppresses our sex hormones. So if you decide to do something like Anavara Winstrol, you really should pair that with TRT therapy to replace what your body is losing. Does that make sense? So it's just a whole big commitment.
Yeah.
If you're going to do one, you got to do the other. And
I've heard that like
you got to do them for a long time.
Yeah. And like, from what I've understood is like, people are like, oh, you think like lifting weights is complicated. Well, now if you want to start going on gear, don't think it's easier. It gets harder in the sense of, if you want to do it right in the most ideal condition, you can't just like hop on a D-ball cycle and expect to just have these massive gains. It becomes a big chemistry knowledge-based thing.
And you've got to get blood work done first.
Constantly.
You've got to have a coach who can read the blood panel and understand how to dose you. We're talking, I'm talking about men here. I have different opinions on steroids for women, but for men, because they don't have to worry as much about, developing masculine features and certain
like
things.
the masculine features are almost desired for some people that take them.
Right,
they're like, oh, deeper voice?
Yeah,
Sick.
If anything, it's like, how do I not get man boobs out of this?
Yeah,
like to take something to help with that. But
yeah, what is that like? So when people like, is it
get
just
the gyno?
Get the gyno. Is that just that's from? They need like some sort of aromatase inhibitor or something like that?
So once you've got it, it doesn't, you need to have lipo.
Surgery,
it doesn't go away.
But how do you prevent it in the first place?
I think it's an estrogen blocker. I'm not 100% sure because I don't have to worry about gyno.
Yeah. You're like, oh, gyno, sure.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Sweet. Cups now? Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I think it's an estrogen blocker that they have to take. That will prevent that from happening. But sometimes that doesn't work.
Yeah. And like that can even be sketch too, because you do want to have like good levels of everything. And like, this is where it just gets crazy. And that's why it's like
stacks on stacks on stacks.
Yeah. It's just like before you know it, you're like, okay, well, I have to have a test base because I need to make sure that I'm flatlining my test.
Yep.
Okay. But if I take, friggin' Deca, okay, well, I might lose sexual drive, and I don't want that because I want to still have sex. So
So
now I'm taking Cialis, and I am taking tests.
Now
And
you're like,
I'm not really big enough. I might hop on like some super draw,
science experiment, super soldier, basically.
And then before the end of it, you're just like,
bald.
Yeah, you're bald.
You're bald.
Yeah, you're bald. You're bald, and like you've aged yourself by like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm like a really big proponent. If like you're not gonna be competing,
that's the kicker.
Like don't do it. Don't do it. It's just not. It's not worth it in any facet because it just becomes so much more complicated. The losing the hair, the no balls. All right, no balls. You like it's just
it's worse for women. Let me just tell you.
Can you go into that?
No, I don't. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Yeah, I am curious though, because like
So it depends on the drug and which side effect you wind up with, but hair thinning is definitely up there. Voice deepening can happen. Your jawline, you can tell I'm from Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Jawline can square off, so your face actually starts to look masculine.
Oh, interesting.
Facial hair. Acne is big.
I hear women love facial hair.
Women love facial hair. Yeah. It's just the
Never
best
shaved
thing
my whole
ever.
life till
yeah,
now.
Right. I have to shave all of my legs, and now I have to shave my face. I don't, but
I got it.
So facial hair, acne, and then a lot of stuff happens to the female organs. And I don't know how far in depth you want me to go.
As far as you want to, I would love to. We're both biomedical engineering majors, so we love the science stuff.
So stuff grows. So
interesting.
Yeah,
like clitoral development.
Correct.
Wow.
It will grow, and typically, and I don't want to say typically, but like sometimes the first time you do a cycle, it'll go back. It'll like shrink back to what it was before.
Whoa.
But 2 cycles is Russian roulette. Like it's probably gonna stay that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it becomes extremely sensitive. Your sex drive goes through the roof, which could be good or bad depending on your situation. But
for single, that's a not so great situation.
So that's what I when I have these young girls come to me and they're like, "Can I try Anavar?" I'm like, "You want a big clit?" Like
yeah. I mean, might as well keep it real from to be honest, because I feel like
wow. So that's a good thing to start off with. You start off with the most like, whoa, what do you mean?
Yeah, basically.
So I guess
I never knew that. Wow.
What is there a problem with like someone? Let's say someone's on birth control and then they want to start doing that type of thing. Is like something to consider when you're doing.
You'll stop ovulating as a woman if you take anabolic steroids. So the birth control's kind of irrelevant at that point. I mean, I would still take it just for the hell of it.
But they don't like interact with each other in any weird way,
they
or like
must
is it
in a certain way, right? Because a lot of birth control is progesterone.
Yeah.
So if you're spiking your progesterone,
right,
and now you're introducing like a testosterone substitute, there's got to be some sort of they don't just pass by each other like good day, you know. So
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. But I will tell you that in prep, birth control is not something that you would stop using.
Yeah.
So so I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that and find out for you.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, if a woman was to go on some sort of something, is it just Anavar is the go-to? Or is it like, hey, you should have like, if you're going to be like let's say you're really going for it. You're like, I'm committing. I've already lifted for this many years. I want to compete at a high level. And we all know those. I don't know why there's like still a mystery. Like I'll look under comments of like a winner of some crazy bodybuilding show. I'm like, and there's still people like, yeah, bro, she's natural. I'm like, she's not.
No.
She's not. It's okay that she's not. I'm not taking away anything that she did because it's still very challenging to get to where she is. But we also have to have some sort of realism here and be transparent.
So there are
a
couple of considerations. Number one, which category are you competing in? If you're a bikini girl, you probably don't need steroids.
Yeah.
They don't, the requirement for muscle is not as high as it is with the other categories. They typically, and this varies by region and federation, but they typically don't want you to be lean. That's, super lean. That's considered being over conditioned. They don't want to see striations in bikini. So I would say if you're competing in figure and up, so figure and physique up to bodybuilding, and you wanted to use either Anavar or Primo, I would say that if you're over the age of 35 and you are really driven to win, that would be where you would go. But you would need to add in some TRT therapy as well.
Wow. And see, there starts the cocktail.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It starts to get to be like, because like I get so nervous about like, like let's say, okay, you're really committing to it and it's kind of I shouldn't say kind of, it's a big deal. And it's like, you got to make sure everything else is dialed too. Because the last thing you'd want to do is fuck your whole life up and then place in sixth.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, people don't make money competing.
Right.
It's not like
no money
your livelihood depends on it. There's no money in it. It's you either coach or you, that's it. You coach.
You get like a sponsorship, maybe.
Or you get a small spot. I mean, the big guys get sponsors and endorsements and stuff like that. But on your average, show, most people aren't going to have that. So is the risk really worth the reward? Would be what I would ask somebody. That being said, I do have some older clients who have benefited from HGH therapy, which is or peptide therapy, which is similar to GH. It just gets, instead of directly supplementing with it, it gets your body to produce more of it.
Yeah, right.
So that is kind of the outlier for the 50 plus bodybuilding community. I feel like I'm more inclined to be supportive of that than I would of like an anabolic steroid.
Right.
But I forgot where I was going with this. Where did we start?
Well, it was more so, it kind of sounded like you were going down the path of like the differences.
What would the go-to be?
Yeah. Because like, I mean, so from what I understand, because I've done peptides. I've done a few. I've done what's the
TJC?
Yeah,
Ipamorelin, which is a growth hormone.
Yeah, Sermorelin, CJC 1295. You got your GHRP2 and GHRP6.
I'll usually the only time I've really done it is when I've been feeling like I was injured.
Yeah,
and that is when I've seen the most benefit is the speed at which I've been able to recover from like an injury.
Right.
I've ran in a Ipamorelin CJC combo because they say like that's the 1 + 1 = 3 type situation. I've run that as like let me see if I can get any muscle gains out of it. And I've never really been like, oh wow, I gained so much muscle. I've just felt like I slept better.
Yeah, the sleep. I feel like the sleep is like crazy.
The sleep is like
you sleep way better.
Oh my god, you're having like dreams that you're like, whoa.
Yeah. And I almost feel like it's like you get less sleep, and I'm like, I feel more well rested than I did getting 8 hours.
Yeah. You sleep like 6, and it's like you slept. 8.
There are cosmetic benefits too. Your skin gets smoother, hair gets thicker, nails get stronger.
The hair growth thing also, I feel like I definitely noticed actually. It's like getting a haircut like every 3 weeks.
Yeah, I wish I noticed that more.
Anyway, sorry, buddy.
So for this prep, that's all I'll use are peptides.
Okay. And what's your go-tos right now?
I'm using the Sermorelin and I'm stacking it with GHRP6.
Okay. Is there a preference towards like Sermorelin versus like a CJC Ipamorelin?
So CJC and Sermorelin are almost basically identical. The difference is in the half-life. Okay. So Sermorelin actually has a shorter half-life than something like CJC. Okay. However, it has more anti-aging cosmetic benefits. So that's what I went with.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I actually didn't know that.
I just inject twice a day instead of once a day.
Okay.
So that's what I'm using now. But yeah, they're pretty much identical, in that class of peptides.
From what I've understood about peptides too, is like the more that you get down the age like line, the more benefit they have because it's sort of upping your natural production. Yep. So if your natural production is pretty low because of your age, like because we know as we age, our growth hormone production goes way down, that all of a sudden it kind of ramps it back up to when we felt young. And so now you actually feel that difference more than like someone who's in their 20s like myself.
The difference takes
it.
Smaller.
It's like, the difference is more than likely
That's
smaller.
the downside with supplementing directly with GH is that it shuts down your natural HGH production. Whereas when you supplement with peptides, it gets your body to produce more of it. So
and then when you stop, it just goes back to wherever you were before.
Right. Or you can do a smaller like maintenance dose to keep keep it elevated without taking the full dose. But yeah, that's those are my kind of like, they're on my approved list with a bunch of conditions and caveats for clients.
What would you say a caveat would be?
Well, if they're under the age of like 30, not necessary. You know, your body makes plenty of HGH already. You're fine. You're fine. Stop complaining. Yep. You're one of the lucky ones.
There's this guy at I go to another gym, so I go to that one that we go to, and then I go to another one. There's this guy over there.
Westerly.
Yeah. There's this guy over there, and he's like huge, you know, and he's older, and he's every time I see him, not every time, but like, you know, I've seen him a bunch, maybe about 75% of the time. He's always like, bro, like, when are you going to do the real stuff? He's like, you got to at least do HGH, man. And I was like, and I'm like, I could tell, I know you do it, but like.
I know you do it.
Yeah.
He's like always a silverback gorilla, dude.
Oh,
that guy's
dude,
walking
he's
around.
huge,
Like,
Yeah. He's stacking it with something else.
Oh yeah, no, he's
big,
very open about how he's been on the sauce for many years.
Yeah.
And like, I guess he got like some surgery, and then he upped his HGH, and like he had, of course, crazy enhanced recovery. He went back to the doctor like a few weeks later, and they're like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you already healed?" Yeah. So
the other thing that I like about the peptides is that they're mostly injectables, so it bypasses your liver that first round.
Oh yeah, that's true. You avoid the first pass. That's like another thing too, though. Just along the lines of just like taking to tea is. People like, I hope you're okay with like injecting for the rest of your life. And it's not a peptide needle. It's,
that's
you know what I mean?
It's a big boy.
And it like, goes right in the muscle too. It's not sub-Q.
Yeah, subcutaneous. So the difference there for like, people that don't know is like a peptide injection you inject into the fat. And then the anabolics is into your actual muscle, which means you have to stab pretty deep. Pretty deep.
I just like, that alone, like, turned me off. I was like, all right, I don't know that I could do that. And then potentially have to do that for the rest of my life once a week. Like, I'm all set.
Dude, and like...
I don't think I could hit myself with an EpiPen. Never mind voluntarily
think about it.
Give myself an intramuscular injection. No, thank you.
No.
So gross.
I mean, even like, I'm not kidding. Even when we first started doing the peptides,
it's a little queasy.
Yeah, I remember being like... You know,
and it's just like irritable, and like, you know, and like I'm like, what do I put lotion on this or something? Like,
did you keep them in the fridge?
Yes. Itchy in terms of like almost like, you know, like when you get a bug bite, you know, they say that's like just the simple needle going in and out of the skin is enough to make you want to itch it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like,
itchy.
you don't even at the injection site, you don't get any. Do you put lotion on? Do you put lots of lotion on? No,
I don't know what it is.
Lots of lotion on.
I definitely
my peptide shot.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, just in general.
You look great, actually.
Thank you.
My skin is glowing.
Not ashy.
I definitely have like more sensitive skin. Like I don't even shave my face with a blade because like I just, you know, my skin doesn't like it. So maybe that's part of it. But like every now and then, I'll get like, if I'm doing it or like whatever. Like again, I like tore one of my ligaments in my knee, and that was like when I started doing it. Or sprained it, but it was basically torn. But yeah, like I can't imagine. I'm sure it's way worse, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, with a T needle. Something that's like intramuscular, going way deeper, and it's like thicker gauge needle. So I don't know. Couldn't be me. So everybody says Anavar, and they're just
I know they're
down the hatch.
Pill. Yeah, there's actually a buddy of mine who just like, he's like, bro, you know, anytime you want to start. I'm like, no, dude, no, get out of here. First of all, I would go bald instantaneously.
Yeah, wait until you're 40 and you're already going bald, and then you look into TRT therapy.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what do you feel about like, for example, right now I'm on like hair maintenance drugs.
You're really concerned about your hair?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm in the acting biz, so I'm trying to keep the hairline intact as much as possible.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I do take minoxidil and finasteride. Minoxidil being like the topical one, and then finasteride the pill form.
It's like Rogaine, right?
Yeah, I think like that would be like.
I think Rogaine is minoxidil, actually, right? It's like 5% or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Do you have any opinions on that stuff? Or I know it's like a little bit, because like even like women I've heard are like thinking about taking it, and I'm like, I don't really know. I know for me, like it wasn't that big of a deal, but I go to the gym, so I'm not really too worried about like minimal effects on my T levels.
Yeah.
But I know for guys that don't ever work out, that like taking something that would suppress DHT might actually severely impact their feelings and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So it definitely affects your emotional state. I had an ex who would take tests for 8 months at a time and then come off of it for 3 months just to let his system kind of re-regulate itself.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have to do it continuously. And it was a nightmare.
Okay. But that's with test, right?
That was with test. Yeah. What
we can actually stay on that. We can come back to the minoxidil question after. But like
finasteride.
Finasteride. But like for that is kind of funny because it is for whatever reason popular to say like, there's no like, you'll be okay, or like it's you get to keep the gains afterwards and all this stuff. And it's like no.
Yeah.
Like there's like roid rage is definitely a thing, but maybe roid depression isn't talked about as much.
Exactly. Transitioning back to your normal body. That's true with a competitor after a show. You can't walk around at 7% body fat year round. And so like having to go back to your normal body is really tough. But I mean,
was he trying to, because there is that peptide, what is it? The one that HCG. It stimulates. What is this? I forget what the acronym stands for, but it helps your testes produce more of its natural testosterone. So guys that usually are coming off of, I think it's HCG, right?
Yeah.
Guys that are coming off of gear will usually take HCG as a natural recovery.
It is, exactly. It's a post-cycle therapy drug.
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about that. I don't dose.
Yeah.
I don't give men steroids.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your post-cycle therapy is like.
No, I didn't know if like your partner at the time was utilizing that or if they just went cold turkey.
No, I don't think so.
Oh God, that sounds miserable.
I've never heard of it, so
okay.
I mean, maybe I.
Jeez, that must have been tough. So for 3 months, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was tough for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I like trying to deal with a person who's in that kind of state. It's like definitely tough.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Super emotionally unstable. I feel like 8 months is also a long amount of time to stay on, is it not? Maybe
test.
Yeah.
Well, no test. You don't really cycle it per se.
Okay.
That's something that you would. I guess maybe a couple weeks off, but not 3 months.
Yeah.
8 months on and 3 months off.
Yeah, that seems pretty
3 months
aggressive.
off seems really tough because you would go from here, especially if he was taking doses that were like competing levels to here.
Yeah.
I mean, you go from Superman to depressed man
feeling like
real
a million
fast.
bucks.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, to hop off of this a little bit. So when you're sort of like getting into clientele and stuff, there's one thing I was more curious about that we hadn't touched on, but it was like training modalities, right? Like there's a lot of people that I'm sure approach you that have never squatted before, that have never so do you find the online coaching, is it like, hey, we should meet up for at least one session so I can check you, or how does that work?
They're local, like Gia, for instance. Do you know Gia at the gym? No. She looks my height. You would know her. She looks just like me.
Okay, I'd probably recognize her if I saw her.
So she's local and she's a contest prep client. So I'll meet up with her and train with her every couple of weeks. And then I've got a figure girl who's local, so I'll meet up with her. But a lot of my clients are all over the place, so I can't be physically present with them. I wouldn't take a contest prep client who had never squatted before. You're not ready for a contest prep if you've never done a squat.
Yes, of course.
But in terms of like a lifestyle client, I wouldn't give that person squats. I would give them dumbbell squats,
something.
And, and I have like a little app that I use to deliver everybody's programming. And each exercise has like GIF with it, which like shows them how to do it with proper form.
Cool,
and then they can send in form checks, which is just a video of them doing the exercise that I can give them cues. But there's definitely, definitely a disconnect. We keep using the word disconnect. You online coaching, online training is really for clients who have some sort of fitness background.
Right. And they're coming to you to fine-tune things.
Yeah, or just to learn more. I mean, as long as you've kind of been in a gym before and you know what a leg press looks like, and you can use a Smith machine,
Yeah.
That's more, would be my wheelhouse than a brand new person that isn't local.
Right.
Because some people just need in-person work, and that's fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And something like a leg press or like machines are more like plug and play than like a barbell squat, which is like a lot of people, like you said, I like the idea of you doing dumbbell squat because you don't need the shoulder external rotation.
Yep.
Like a lot of people can't even do that without like hyperextending their back. So it's like, especially if you're not there, and I don't know, that's like a advanced move. Like if you can do that, like you're probably, and it looks good, like you're probably in a pretty good spot overall.
Yeah. Because it's an Olympic move, or like a competition move, I should say, for a reason. Because it's like the highest level of expression for that, just like a deadlift is,
like
just
mobility.
Like an overhead press. So to sort of like tie it off, are there sort of like, maybe go through like some of your favorite tips that you love to give to people? Anything that you want to sort of cover before we sort of wrap it up?
Well, you can't out-train a bad diet. So if you're in the gym and you have the goal of changing what you look like, then you are a bodybuilder, and you really need to pair your training with a proper diet. And you will not, I'm not going to say you won't make progress without it, but you won't make sustainable progress without it. So diet and training, they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Number 2, you can't be in a calorie deficit for 3 years. If you've been dieting nonstop forever, you need to reverse diet. So you need to build your caloric levels back up to where they are at maintenance to repair the metabolic damage that you've done from dieting. I've got girls who are like, I diet and I've been working so hard and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, how long have you been dieting for? I don't know, 18 months. You need to reverse diet. Yeah. What ends up happening is your body will adjust, and it'll lower your maintenance to what you are giving it. So over time, your metabolism decreases. And so you need to reverse diet after a certain period of time. What else? Bring your kids to the gym. Or your girls, especially. So they're not intimidated when they're adults.
Yep.
I'm trying to do it with my daughter now. I did do it with my oldest son, and my youngest is a little too young to go into the gym. But a lot of the problems I see with women, it's that they're afraid to get in there and like embarrass themselves, or they're intimidated by that people are looking at them, or it's just the environment itself that makes them uncomfortable. So get your kids in the gym, get them comfortable with the gym, so that when they're adults, they can walk into a gym and not feel like uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I like that, because I think starting them young and introducing them to the gym makes the gym more normal.
Right.
It's not, oh, what is this place? It's, this is like, this is just like getting up and brushing my teeth.
It's part of life.
Part of our life.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3. Bang, bang, bang.
Done.
Nice.
I love it. All right. Well, where can everyone find you?
Yeah,
and your training or anything you want to link just before we...
Yeah. So Cerebellum Fit is my website. That's SARAHBELLUMFIT.com. And then I'm on Instagram. If you search for Cerebellum Fit, you'll find me.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming down, chopping it up.
Great.
And it was great. It was a ton of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to Bone Apple Tea. If you like the show, please give us a follow, like, comment, subscribe, whatever it is. Tell your friends about it. And make sure to follow us on Instagram. That's Bone Apple TV. BoneAppleTeav on Instagram. Thanks so much.